Hello and welcome to this episode of the FSG. My name is Chris Molyneux, and in this episode what we're going to start to do now is introduce other former soldiers. We'll get their highs, their lows and their shared experiences throughout it, and to be honest, I don't want to overhype this a little bit too much, but I think I've set the bar quite high with this first interview. So what I would like to say is thank you for tuning in, and let's get started. We'll get into it. I know who this person is, so what I'd like, if, I don't know, do you want to introduce yourself, who you are and what you do? I feel like Cilla Black from back in the day.
Yeah, my name's Paul. I'm currently the country director for a security company working in Afghanistan. Prior to this, and in another life, I was in the military for 25, 26 years. Joined at 16, all the way through, commissioned for a couple of years before leaving, ex-infantry. Yeah, that's me really.
Happy days. Like I say, it's easy from my standpoint because I've like served with you or for you and stuff like that. But we're going to take it right back to the beginning. So why is it that you decided to join the army? Was there, I don't know, was there any family influence or was there an environment influence or something like that?
Yeah, so it was probably a mixture of environment, family upbringing. I was brought up in foster care, so I was brought up in the welfare system from the age of 3 until 11, and then went back to live with my real mother at the time. Brought up in Latchford, not the best place to be brought up in Warrington, but the environment wasn't great. Although I went to a decent school, the people in the area that I lived in didn't actually go to that school, so outside of school the environment was quite difficult. So was the family environment. I originally wanted to join the police. Was too young to join the police. I thought the military police. Was too young to join the military police. And then, at the age of 16, I wanted to get away from Warrington. There's a number of choices really. With some of the people that I associated with, not all of them, that it was the only way that I could get out of the situation that I was in. So the army was just probably an escapism from the environment that I was in.
Did you feel, I don't know, did you feel it was an easy decision then?
It was a very easy decision for me. Yeah. There was, I think, a few people were shocked when I actually said that I wanted to join the army.
Yeah.
But it was a very easy decision.
Right.
It was a good way of getting out of Warrington,
Yeah.
to be fair.
You're not missing anything back home. Yeah. So you've done what? So you went full stint and some, so 25, 26 years. What made you decide that, I'm all in with this? Was there, I don't know, was there a certain year or a certain event that went, this is for me now?
I enjoyed the military. The military gave me everything that I didn't get in the life before I joined the military. So for me, it was, you've been there as a lad living in the block. You've got that family of friends. You've got, friends that you have forever. Yeah. There are still guys that I was a young lad with that I still meet up on leave today, 30 odd years later. So it was that kind of brotherhood, if you like, of guys that you bond with, you go on tour with. There was never a time during the period that I ever thought of leaving. I enjoyed the military. I enjoyed going through the ranks. I enjoyed the appointments that I had.
Yeah.
Depot as a full screw, Brecon as a colour sergeant, Harrogate. Going on up tours. Yeah. I didn't particularly enjoy junior Brecon, but I did enjoy senior Brecon. So those kind of those kind of things. So to be honest, I never actually thought about leaving until, and I was quite an ambitious guy as well, and I had like points that I wanted to achieve, and being RSM and commissioning were those points. So
okay. So I've said this before, and other people will probably say the same thing. I'm probably speaking on behalf of a lot of people here. When you came to Corunna back in Cyprus, I think it was like 2004, I think it was. That was quite a culture shock for us as an organisation, because we were like, oh, hang on a minute, we've got this guy from Brecon now who is like keen as mustard. You'd just been, I think it was the training wing beforehand. But one thing that I think a lot of people would say is they liked the leadership, the man management, the way that you developed others. Was that, I don't know, was that your natural style from the get-go? Or was that something that, I don't know, you've took snippets from other people and gone, you know what, I'm going to put this together and make myself?
I think the majority of it is down to my character. Even from joining as a young lad, I was always being part of a team has always meant a great deal to me, and it's irrelevant of whether you're in charge of that team or whether you're the newest part of that team. You're also part of that team, and that's what I've always based my leadership on. My leadership is always about do as I do, not as I say. We've all been in and around good leadership, and we've all been in and around toxic leadership, as I call it. And I have taken snippets of things from people throughout my career where I thought, yep, that's good. But then again, I've taken more away from toxic leaders of what not to do rather than good leaders of what to do. And, I've got some, I can be quite honest, that I've got some, good friends or colleagues that I had in the military that were very good friends of mine, but were toxic leaders, and the way they spoke to people and the way they treated people was, well, very disrespectful, and that I didn't agree with. So I would say a lot of it was natural, with little bits of snippets throughout my career of what I wanted to do, but more importantly from toxic leaders of what I didn't want to do. So that was.
I'd say like one distinct memory for me was obviously when you took the chair, was the whole, we had to answer a question correctly first if we ever came to your door before we could then get something from you. Where like, I don't know, where did that come from, or what was that brought about from?
It's all about being. I've always strived to try and be the best at what I can do, and as part of a team, I think the team should have the same kind of mentality. And it's all about, and we've discussed this before. It's generally the rule of thumb in the military is you don't start to go on operations until 6 months prior to going operations, when you do your beat up training, pre-deployment training, CalFEX, and then deploy. Whereas my attitude has always been, well, no, you should be prepared to deploy as of tomorrow, and that includes, that's how your training should be structured, that's how your attitude should be structured, your fitness should be structured, because that's what you get paid to do. So it was all about improving the team, and there was always banter with it. I did it when I ran the training wing, when we're out on PT, asking people questions. I did it as Company Sergeant Major, when it was the RSM of 1 Yorks, the COSs, the BOSs. Sergeant Majors even got asked questions if they came to the door. So it was all about building the team, and making it a better team. So that's what the question is. Were all about.
And I think anybody who did come to your door would have to make sure that they were sparking, because it was like, right, you've got to be serious here. You don't just like, oh, can I have this? It was like, you've got you had to know what you were talking about when you were talking about it. So for this is going to be quite hard, because 26 years is quite a long period of time to have served. But during the time, what was, you say, the most challenging part, if you could pick one out of, that period?
Yeah, the most challenging time would have been, it would have been a period of time, and that would have been Bosnia, when I was a young Lance Corporal, 20 years of age, 1993. I'd done tours of Northern Ireland before that, and although Northern Ireland was physically and mentally demanding, it wasn't particularly kinetic. It obviously been, I'm not taking away from people that have been there before or people that have been in kinetic situations there, but it wasn't as kinetic as Telix or Herix and things like that. So although I'd been to Ireland, I hadn't really been exposed to what we actually trained for. So as a young lad at 20 years of age, went over there with 1 PWO as a warrior commander, and had to grow up very, very quickly with, and I'm sure the guys that went there in the early years will agree that it was an eye-opener in terms of understanding what humanity can do to each other. So it was a big learning curve. It was a big step up from into manhood, to be honest, and has and still has a lifelong effect on me. So it was, I'd say it was probably those 6 months.
I think a lot of people who are going to be watching this, those that have deployed on Optos and stuff like that, will be able to relate to that. Even you see it on like the programs like Our War, where they took the picture before and then at the end, just within that 6-9 month period, you can see the physical changes. Not as much as the mental side of it. So that's quite possibly one of your toughest times. What is one of the worst training exercises that you might have ever deployed on then during that period in any rank? Because obviously, you've ticked the boxes for all of them.
Yeah, it would have to be Canada in 2007. I'd handed over C Company to the new Sergeant Major, and I'd been put in the training wing, ran an NCO's cadre in there. Was due to be posted to AFC Harrogate. But there was a 7-week gap, so they decided to take me to Canada as the Night Stag Ops Warrant Officer, which was just probably the worst experience of my life, working with the Battalion 2IC at the time, who wasn't the easiest person to get on with. Nice enough guy, but slightly strange. So doing Ops Warrant Officer for 6 to 7 weeks, and it was that bad I even paid for my own flight to fly back.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, though, knowing of you, of going from that outdoorsy in the field, getting amongst it, to then go right, sit here, listen to this radio and everything that comes in, that must be pretty much soul destroying for for someone like yourself there. So we've talked about the toughest, the worst, ops. Well, yeah, we're not gonna go there again. What's one of your greatest, if not the greatest, achievements in that career span?
Greatest achievement would be taking over as Corona Company, C Company Sergeant Major. Having joined the battalion straight to C Company, private in C Company, Lance Corporal, Corporal, Platoon Sergeant. I think the only rank that I just wasn't the CQMS. So I was C Company all my career. And being the company sergeant major, and especially the last company sergeant major of 1 QLR and the first company sergeant major of 1 Lancs, was probably the although I went on to be RSM, that is what I'd term to be the pinnacle of my career. Fantastic bunch of guys, fantastic company commander, 2IC. I think we just had a really good company at that period. So yeah, it was just the only regret I have is not actually going on operations as a company sergeant major with C Company. That would probably be a regret, but with regards to the highlight would be Corona Sergeant Major.
And it is definitely, like you said, prior to you, I think we had it easy. I think the 2 previous Sergeant Majors, we were like, but then it was like, pow, straight in the face when you took over. But as we'll get onto in a couple of seconds, like you said, we had the right bunch of people, and it just worked. At first it was a bit, but then it just clicked. This segment now is, I'm going to be doing this with other people as well, is where I go and troll your social media, whether it be LinkedIn, Facebook and stuff like that, and we'll just pick out a couple of pictures and you can build some context on it. This first picture though, there isn't actually any evidence of it on the internet. It's just purely from memory day. So what I've had to do is scalp and put something together. But the first picture we're going to talk about is the DPM pay stick. So where did this camouflage pay stick idea either originate, come from, or what's the story behind it?
So the DPM pay stick, that came from, well, first and foremost, I was never a drill pig, didn't like drill, and that wasn't my bag at all. So I always remembered that when I was at Brecon as a DS, we used to do study days in December. There used to be like 2 or 3 day study day. We used to get guest speakers coming in, quite interesting guest speakers. And on this one occasion, the CGS came in, and he had just given a brief at Sandhurst. And he came in, and his opening remarks to the brief to IBS were, good afternoon, it is a pleasure to be in the presence of soldiers and not diplomats, which it still makes me smile to this day. So on my pay stick was a brass plaque saying soldiers first, diplomats second. Now the DPM bit came in, and I had it specifically made for me. I didn't just spray it black and green and brown. I actually had it custom made. It was pretty much, if I'm honest with you, it was a kickback against the RMAS guys, because they all thought they were the dogs, and as far as I was concerned, they weren't. And there was this like little clique of drill pigs, and drill was more important to them than anything else. Well, actually, it's not. It's whether you can put your kit on your back and whether you can, tab 12 miles and then fight at the end of it. That is what's important, not drilling people on a drill square. So that's what's wrong.
And I think, I don't know, I could probably ask other people, but I think it's the only one that I've ever come across. So I think you've claimed that title, definitely. The other picture then is Paul Urey with a 94 on his back.
Yeah, that will be from that was the training wing in Cyprus when I ran the training wing for the first year there. I did 2 NCOs carders, and I was always one thing that's always been important to me, as I said at the beginning of the call, is do as I do, not as I say. Lead by example, and if you're a Lance Corporal and above, then don't expect people to do what you're not willing to do yourself, and that's where a lot of people go wrong, I think. So I always remember back to when I did my NCO's Carter, and it was just a pure thrashing. There was no education. There was education on it, but you were that fragged that you didn't learn anything. And I always remember there was I was given a command appointment of an anti-personnel ambush. I'd never been taught it, never been taken through the orders process on it. I'd been up for about 36 hours, bang, you're on. And needless to say, it didn't particularly go very well, because as soon as I inserted, everybody fell asleep. Orders were terrible. It was just terrible. And that was quite a defining moment for me, because all the way through that and all the way through that process, even at that point, I was like, well, we've not been taught this. How can you expect people to do it if you've not been taught it? Why are people not leading by example? In PT in the morning, it was a way to go, or people running by the side of you with no kit on, and I've never, ever been a fan of that. So for me, working in the training wing with the NCO's card, we did PT at 5 in the morning. The instructors and myself would weigh our kit in front of the guys. If they were carrying 94s, we were carrying 94s. If they were carrying guns, we were carrying guns. And then once PT was over, it was all about education, education, and education. Because you can still beast people on exercise mentally as well as physically. So it's you can degrade them through lack of sleep. You can degrade them through physical activity, but everything they have to learn at the end of it. And that's what was most important to me, is people at the end of I would prefer people to come out at the end of an NCO's Carder, maybe not as thrashed as they were 10 years ago, but more educated, because they're the people that are going to educate the next cohort and the next cohort and the next cohort. They're the guys that are going to get out of Brecon and have to go on to Brecon. So the NCO's Carder is preparing people to go to Brecon. Junior Brecon is preparing people for senior Brecon, so on and so forth. And that's what it's all about. So it's leading by example.
And that, the carrying of kit definitely was something that transitioned over to Corona Company, because, I remember if we'd see other companies going out for a run, then, we'd go out for a run, but then also the GPMGs would be mounted on our backs, or the 94, there was always that addition. It was always like the next step, which became our, it was like our new accepted norm. I felt like Easy Company off Band of Brothers. We were always up and down Curry here continuously.
Yeah, I mean, that instills pride within the company, because when I took over C Company, I felt that there was a little bit of discord, and the gun runs weren't there just to thrash people. They were there to bring them together as a team. And I remember taking over, and the first day that I got the company on parade for PT, there were more people sick or going sick than there were actually on PT.
I think I was one of them.
It was, and I used to stand on the balcony, and I remember that I used to take the role myself, because I wanted to do it myself, and it would be, right, all the guys on PT stand to the right, all the wankers stand in the middle, and all the potential wankers stand to the end. And and that was a bit of banter at the time. But because then I made those on the sick or going sick, we went on PT, go to the armory and clean weapons, because why should the guys that are fit and able go to the armory and clean weapons when I've got 20 guys to do it? And within 4 weeks, I had nobody on the sick and nobody wanted to go sick. They just preferred to do PT. And it was all about bringing the team together and working together as the team. And I've got to admit, I saw some, who I didn't probably class as great junior NCOs at the beginning. By the time that I handed over, I thought were absolutely quality and class junior NCOs, and some private soldiers actually coming through and showing some real leadership ability. I think it achieved its overall aim.
Yeah.
So that was good.
It's funny, just like I can remember picturing it like the balcony up above.
Yeah. Gaz Davis, mate. Gaz Davis used to make me smile every single day. And the thing is with Gaz Davis, and I wasn't going to mention any names, but he used to struggle every single day, but would never ever give up, and he never went sick. And I've got that much respect for that. I had that. I still have respect for the guy, but I had that much respect for the guy at the time. It was phenomenal.
I'm sure Gaz will be watching this, definitely. So that's the picture side of things. So we're going to get close to wrapping this up, but after 26 years, that is a long period of time of doing a similar type of job in the same type of industry. Since you've left, what have you found yourself doing? Did you land the perfect job, or have you hopped around a couple of different jobs?
No, I'll be very honest in this part. When I was RCMO at the time, and I gave myself 2 years when I commissioned to see whether I'd like it or not. And there were a couple of incidents that happened while I was the RCMO that pretty much nailed the coffin shut with regards to me staying in the army. Realised at that point that didn't particularly like being in the officers' mess, didn't particularly like going down that road, and wasn't for me. And therefore I decided to leave. And in all honesty, I had no idea what I wanted to do. But I was at that point in my life where I thought, if I don't leave now, I'll end up staying in to get my captain's pension, and then I'll then be in the pension trap to get my major's pension. Then before you know it, 50 years of age, 55 years of age, and I'm leaving. But I haven't experienced anything else of life, and I joined at 16, and I thought, I want to try myself. I've met the challenges that the Army's provided me. I've had a good career. I've done what I wanted to achieve. Now I want to do that within Civvy Street. No idea what I want to do in Civvy Street, but I'll work that out at a later date. So I signed off, and within 6 weeks I was gone, and I went and just went and did some maritime work as a team member. I wasn't a team leader. When I did team member, I had excellence jacks, as my TLs, and I was quite happy lugging kit, standing on the bridge, being told what to do, and I really enjoyed it. I did it for 6 to 12 months, and even when I was offered a team leader slot, no, I'm all right. I'm quite happy. There's no pressure on me anymore. So I did that for 12 months. I then went on FTRS for a couple of years. So I did 22 and a half years regular service and a couple of years FTRS. And I was RCMO for a medical unit. Realised very, very quickly after joining that unit the reason why I left in the first place. But for compassionate reasons and for home life, I decided to give it a go, but it wasn't for me. Then went and did head of security for a oil company in Libya. Did that for 4 years, and then after a 6 months stint in the UK, I then came out to Afghanistan. So it's been quite disjointed, and I have improved myself educationally throughout that period. And to be honest, it's like zeroing. If you take the time to fire a 20-round group and find your CZP, then when you fire your 5-round group, you know that you're going to zero your weapon. If you only fire a 5-round group, you're going to be continually chasing it around the target. And that is what I've done, really. I've just chased the grouping around the target until I got to where it was, which is the job that I'm in now, which I really, really enjoy. So I wouldn't say it's been an easy road. I would do things differently if I could do. But I am happy in the job that I'm doing at the moment.
That's good to know. Last one then. So we've talked about before, we've talked about during, highs, lows and all the rest of it. But for anybody who is watching this, and I don't know, they're probably going to have follow-up questions following this, but if you could give any advice to them, either they're coming to their end of the time or they are deciding to leave after X amount of time, what would that advice be?
Yeah, I mean, even as the RCMO, I would split people down into two groups. You've got those people that are in their military service that choose to leave, whether it be at 4, 7, 10, 12 years, and then you have the people that naturally come to their end of time, having served 22, 24 years. So if I take the guys that, generally the younger guys, privates, lance corporals, corporals who decide to leave, my advice to those kind of guys is think about what you want to do. Don't knee-jerk react. The army isn't all that bad. I admit it's not for everybody, but if you choose to leave, then you need to think about what you're going to do when you get out. Think about what floats your boat. Think, because whatever you do when you get out is going to have to be a career. Now, if you're happy to be a window cleaner for 20 odd years, then go and be a window cleaner for 20 odd years. But I would suggest that that's not going to fulfil your ambitions later on down the line. So it's taking that time to think about what you would like to do, maybe when you're at school or so on and so forth. Do some research into that, identify the qualifications that you need to achieve, and then take that 12-month period of termination period to educate yourself, to do more research, have a look at what the employment for that kind of sector is like in your area, because you may qualify yourself in something, but there's no work in that sector in your area, and then you're going to fall on your face because you're going to get out, and you may have to relocate or requalify, which is a waste of time for the 12 months. So get a plan, educate yourself, do some research, and make sure that you are prepared. It's concurrent activity, really. In that 12 months, conduct as much concurrent activity as you can to ensure that once you cross the line of departure on your termination date, you can then step into employment, or take a month off and step into employment. For those people that are coming to the end of the career and they have 2 years, it's very similar. It's identical, but just take the 2 years to do it. Look at the education that you can do within that time period that is going to assist you when you get out. Because that's what I did wrong. If I'd have done my time again, I'd have signed off, and then I would have taken a couple of years to do the education piece. I've done it, but it's taken me 5 years, whereas if I'd done it in the military, it would have taken me 2 years. And again, identify something that you can step into, remembering that if you're leaving at 40, 44 years of age, your competition are going to be 30, 32 with 12 years experience ahead of you. So you've got to make sure that you have a plan, you do your research, you educate yourself, and then you start to network and get business connections before you actually leave. So it's all about concurrent activity. And as I've said to you before, after this, if anybody wants to reach out to me, if they want any advice about the sector that I'm in, about any other questions about careers or post-military ways to get into other sectors, then by all means contact me. I've probably done more career management since I left the military than I did when I was actually in, because the guys are always contacting me, asking me questions, and I'm more than happy to answer them.
So that could be a second call in that. We've just not twigged onto it yet. But no, I agree with all those points. The planning stage at the beginning, I've done a video previous to this that is going to be out there as well, and it does follow that similar trait and path, because there's so many knee jerks out there that it's not for the right reasons, and end up, like you said, falling flat on the face, and that's not what we want. That's pretty much it. I want to keep it as short, as sweet, as simple as we physically can. What I would like to say is thank you again. This is our second time round with this, because obviously we had technical difficulties the last time.
Not my fault, by the way. Not
I know, yeah, I did it. I'll put my hands up. But like Paul has said, if any of you want to reach out to him, I think you're on LinkedIn, aren't you?
I'm on LinkedIn.
Yeah. So you feel free to reach out to them. But on behalf of other people watching and myself, I'd just like to say thank you very much, Paul, for giving us some time. And it was a pleasure, for that X amount of time that we served together. And stay safe and keep doing what you're doing, man.
Cheers, mate. Thanks very much.
Okay, so there you go. That is the end of this episode. I hope you got something from it, whether it be, an individual thing or even just getting to know Paul a little bit better. What I would say again is Thank you to Paul for taking part in this. Thank you to everybody else who's watching it and supporting. And look forward to the next episode. And I will see you then. Speak to you guys soon.